3 years ago, we received the 2020 Smissmas update, which for the first time since Tough Break brought us a new set of community-made maps for winter. These include Snowville, a reskin of Sawmill, Snowfall, a reskin of Landfall, Whatville, a town themed after Dr. Seuss's Whoville, and Pier, an Italian-themed island town with a carnival. Of these 4 maps, Pier is the only one not themed after Christmas. Instead, it more so resembles New Year. And on top of that, it ended up getting added to the year-round map pool. The following year, a similar thing happened. All but one of the maps were Christmas themed, and that one map ended up in the year-round pool as well. But 2022 broke this pattern. This time, all of the maps were Christmas themed, and none of them stuck around after Christmas. This brings us to the upcoming 2023 Smissmas update, and what I'm wondering is whether we'll see any non-Christmas themed maps added this time around. We did just come off of the summer update, which gave us 14 new year-round maps, but given the fact that that update was made to remedy the Save TF2 outcry, I don't think it'll have any effect on the upcoming Smissmas one. At least it shouldn't if it was really made as a supplemental update. But why am I talking about all of this? Well, because there's one map right now at the top of the Steam Workshop that isn't Christmas themed, and that map is Valor. Both teams are assigned the thrilling mission of demolishing an old church, which is rumored to be linked to government corruption involving Australium and South America's finest gold. My buddy Hopkins actually led the creation of this map, so I had a chance to run an event for it, and let me just say that as someone who never plays King of the Hill, playtesting this map is probably the best Koth experience I ever had. And I don't say that because he's my friend, I say that because I actually think the map's layout and aesthetics are really good. So to start things off, let's take a look at the control point, which is located at the center of this fountain. The capture region for it stretches across this entire platform, and when one team captures the point, a team-colored spark starts traveling up this cable from the fountain to the church door, synchronized with the timer at the top. Once it reaches the end, it sets off these explosives, blowing up the door and giving you access to the Australium. This unique adaptation of the Koth game mode adds an extra layer of depth and excitement, and I absolutely love the creativity behind it. Going over the layout, it's straightforward and intuitive, and I think that's because of how interconnected everything is. There aren't any dead ends, and each spot has its purpose. For example, these back porch areas outside of the restaurants are a great place to fall back to, throw up some buildings, and provide some support for your team around the control point. But they're not too powerful, given that they're accessible from a variety of angles, rocket jumping soldiers, and demos. Another spot is this bakery and fish market, which I find to be a much safer option given its closer proximity to spawn and easy access to the church. But it has the added trade-off of being slightly further away from the point and waives control of the other side of the map. Now, one essential thing that many mappers often overlook but wasn't in this map is the sightlines. There are so many maps in TF2 where Sniper is a pain to deal with, so it's a breath of fresh air to not have to worry about him here. Moving on to the aesthetics, Valor is themed after the capital of Portugal, Lisbon, made apparent by its brightly colored plaster walls, tiled roofs, and tram system. And let's not forget the famous landmarks either. The church at the center is based off of the Basilica of Our Lady of the Rosary, a Catholic church in the city of Fatima. This fort outside of the map in the ocean is the Bellum Tower, and this part of the 3D skybox is St. George's Castle. These iconic landmarks add a touch of authenticity to Valor, making it seem as though players are actually battling in the streets of Lisbon. It's also worth noting the map's custom assets, not because they look good, but because I can tell that the mappers really had some fun and put their heart and soul into them. To start, both team spawns have this cute black and white husky. There are actually several animations for it that we can see here in Hammer, like sleeping on its side, resting its head on its paw, yawning, and even running. Unfortunately, the dogs are only configured to show one of these animations in-game, but hopefully we can get a few of the other ones thrown in later patches. On the topic of fauna, there are also some birds on the map. On the ground outside of both team spawn rooms is a flock of pigeons that fly away when approached. In Hammer, we can see exactly how this works. By crossing this trigger region, you set off this logic relay which tells all of the birds to take off on their own unique path. The only downside to this is that it can only happen once per round, and if you look closely from specific parts of the map, you can see where some of the birds ended up. but this will most likely be fixed, so I wouldn't worry about it. The other birds we see are those already flying in the sky. You might not be able to tell what species they are from the ground, but in Hammer, we can freeze the frame and clearly see that they're these beautiful low-poly seagulls. In fact, these are the same seagulls that could be found in CS2's Inferno until recently, due to apparently resembling flashbangs. Fortunately, we don't have that problem in TF2, so we can gaze at them all we want. So now that we've covered the fauna, let's move on to the textures, starting with the plaster walls. You see how some parts look a little worn out around the edges? Well, that was accomplished by making the plaster a blend texture, meaning there's a base layer and an alpha layer. In Hammer, I can scrape away all of the alpha to reveal the base, or fill everything in to make it look new. This makes the buildings look more realistic since the exteriors of buildings in real life are rarely in pristine condition. The interiors, particularly those of the fish market and bakery, have these beautiful TF2 logo patterns covering the tiles and lintels in this courtyard-like area. The roof tiles are actually part of the Greek asset pack, but fit seamlessly into the whole design. And another thing that fits seamlessly that, in my opinion, is also one of the coolest parts about this map is the music. Take a listen. Tell me that doesn't sound amazing. The team actually commissioned a third-party group to make the song. If that doesn't spell passion for a TF2 map, I don't know what does. Sadly, you can only hear these songs in the spawn rooms through these radios, but I spoke with Hopkins about it and suggested that he add some more radios throughout the map, so hopefully we'll be able to enjoy this music in other areas in the near future. Finally, let's talk about the tram system. Just outside of the map towards the ocean, you'll notice a tram driving along this road. It can come in 3 different colors, red, yellow, or blue, depending on the outcome of this pick random shuffle input, and passes by every 20 to 60 seconds. Just like the seagulls, it follows a path, but if you look closely at the destination signs, you might recognize them as the names of actual TF2 maps, one of which was actually added to the map pool in the summer update. Which brings me back to what I was talking about at the start of the video. While Valor doesn't follow the Christmas theme, its beauty and charm are indisputable. And if maps like Pier and Breadspace were able to get added in Smissmas updates, I don't see why this can't. Hopkins even told me that he plans on throwing out some patches to further refine things, including the gameplay, lighting, textures, soundscapes, music, and more. So this map's only gonna get better. I know that asking for a non-winter themed map to be considered for a Smissmas update is a bit of a stretch, especially considering that it'd make for a great summer map next year, should Valve actually turn that into an annual thing. But I've seen some crazy things happen, and if Valve's open to doing what they did in the last 2 out of 3 updates, why not give Valor a chance? Thank you for watching. This is LED, switching off.